This game is going to be called Memory, and so I've just chosen the theme for Ocean, and we're basically matching these cards to win. So you can click on a card and it'll turn it over, and we're looking for a match. And once we've found a match, I think there was one just here somewhere, there and there. No. Okay, I think there was a pufferfish somewhere here. Here he is. So here and is it here? And so you can see we've matched those. They stay up, and you can see he's actually disappeared from the cards left to match. And so you'll continue to match until you've finished the game. So to start off with, let's go to Xcode and create a new Xcode project. This is going to be a iOS app. Hit next. These need to be unchecked. We're not using core data at all. Let's call this Memory. And let's create it on the desktop, or wherever you'd like to save it. To resume editing, I'm going to make this full screen. Let's import SwiftUI, and it's also going to be observable, so we can see when it changes. It's going to have an ID, which is I'm just going to set it as a UUID. That way it is identifiable with a unique identifier. And it's got a published variable is face up. And to start off with, it's not going to be face up. And it's also going to have a published variable is matched. And it's also going to be false to begin with. So these published variables, when they do change, they call an update to the user interface, or the UI. And the only thing I actually need is the text string. So that all we need to do is get a piece of text in here for this card. I've also got a function that's going to be called turnover, and it's just going to toggle the is face up. So that's going to turn my card over. I'm also going to have some card values. And I'm going to start off, these are going to be a list of string, so I'm going to typecast to a list of string, just so I make sure that Xcode has it right for us. And the values that we're going to use, I'm just going to use all of the emojis for all of the different animal or sea animals. So the first one I'm going to use is a squid, but you can use your own theme, I guess, if you'd like. And then I'm going to use the prawn, and then I'm going to use the crayfish. And then the pufferfish, and then the crab, and then the nice little reef fish, and the other fish, the lure fish, tuna or whatever it is, and then the dolphin. Now when I'm choosing these, I kind of want them to be a even number, and the reason why is because I'm going to create a grid using them. Oops, that's a wave. I don't want a wave, I want a seal. Where is my seal? There's my seal. And then the octopus. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that divides evenly into 4, or actually evenly into 3. So remember, our simulator, our preview had rows of 4 or 3. So that way we can create our grids. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is create my card list. Create card list is going to output a list of card, or an array of cards. So I'm going to create a blank list. It's going to be a list of card, but it's going to be blank to begin with, and then I'm going to, for card value in card values, so the plural values is these ones here. So for each of these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the card, and I'm going to add a new card by appending, and the text is going to be card value. Now that's one card, right? But I actually need to copy and paste that. I need to do it twice. The reason why is because I need 2 cards, 2 of each card in my list. So I need 24 cards because I've got 12 of these, right? Then what I can do is I can return the card list after I've been through my whole list. The last thing I'm going to do is right down the bottom, I'm going to have a face down card. Be a card where the text is going to be a question mark, or you can put in a wave or whatever you'd like. So I'm just going to leave mine a question mark for now. So that's pretty much my model ready to go. So my next step is to set up my card view. So I'm going to create a new Swift view. Let's call this card view. And in here, we're going to have a few different things. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a observed object card. So I know which card I'm using. And we're going to need the width as an integer. And I'm also going to need to know the match cards. Oops, matched cards is going to be a list of card and a user choice, or choices even, as a list of cards. Okay, so to begin with, just so that this view does actually work, I'm going to take these 2 out, and I'm going to take these 2 out. But we're going to need them very soon. So then in my text, my card view, actually, you know what? Let's use one of these cards. So I'm going to set it for now to our, remember we created this create card list, and I'm just going to pull the first card from that. And here we go. So, I'm going to zoom this out a little bit. So if the card is face up, or, that's the double leg up and down, matched cards contains, we haven't got these yet. So let's start with a list of blank cards, and we're going to do the same for our binding. So these 2 are going to become bindings very soon. Or our matched cards dot contains where $0.id is equal to card.id. So if we've already picked that card, if we've already matched that card or it's face up, then we're going to display the card. We're going to create the text with the card.text. And we're going to go, so for now, I'm just going to comment out this if statement, just because I really want to see this card. So I hit resume, I should see the text from the first card in our list. There it is. And I'm going to make it look more like a card, because at the moment it just looks like a piece of text. So we're going to go font, system, size, and I'm going to go size 50, nice and big. Blows it up a little bit. I want some padding. I want a frame. I'm going to use my width as CG float. And I'm going to get some width. So let's start at the moment for 50. And again, we're going to change this. Width, and our height is also going to be the same as the width, so that way it's going to be square. You won't see much, it'll just be that blue border around the image, around the emoji. Then we want our background to have a color, and I'm going to use a red, green, blue color, and I don't need the opacity. So I'm going to delete that part. and I don't need the color space, so I'm just looking for red. I'm going to go 0.68. For green, I'm going to go 0.83. And for blue, I'm just going to go 0.96. Background color, yep, looks good. We're going to use our corner radius of, let's go 10, so that's going to round the corner for me. So you can see my card size is a bit small, so I'm going to up it to 100 because my little emoji is quite large. I've also got to come up with this blue value. So here we go, so you can see it's like a nice light blue, and you can see my card is like a little bit small still. So let's try and up the value again. It should be a little bit bigger. There we go, so you can kind of see the size of the card as we change our size. Now I'm going to set the size as big as I can using a geometry reader to divide up the view. So that looks good for now, just for our preview. Corner radius is 10, and I'm going to overlay a rounded rectangle. So I'm going to open up my rounded brackets and go rounded rectangle, corner radius is going to be 10. And I'm going to go for a stroke. So you can see it's black at the moment, so I'm going to actually change it. So the stroke is going to be color, and I'm going to use red, green, blue again. Color, red, green, blue. That one. So my red is going to be 0.18. My green is going to be 0.32, and my blue is going to be 0.46. So it's going to be like a darker blue. You can kind of see it there. Now that's actually quite narrow, so I'm going to add some line width of, let's say, 5. So it's like a nice solid. So now it's looking more like a card, isn't it? Now that's going to be if the card is face up. So I'm now going to uncomment this back out. Now the card is not face up at the moment because when we create our cards, they're blank. So I'm going to need an else statement to say if the card is not face up, I'm going to put in some text that has the question mark. And then what I can do is I can actually use all of the same modifiers as the card did, so copy and paste them in, and so that's going to make the question mark look pretty much exactly like the squid or one of our cards. So that's if it's face down. Now that text is then going to also have another modifier, an additional one, which is going to be on tap gesture. So when we tap on the text, even though it's not a button, if our user choices.count is equal to 0, so we don't have any choices made yet, we're going to say turn this card over, and we're going to add this to the card. So user choices dot append or add this card. And so if our user choices, so I'm going to say, let's go else if user choices.count is equal to 1, we're still going to turn the card over. We're still going to append 1. But what we're actually going to do is we're then going to give it a second and then basically turn them back the other way. What are we doing? Self is immutable because we're using this card in our body. This card here, and because it's immutable for now, that's okay for now. And it's because our user choices is just a variable where we need it to be at state variable, but it will soon be a binding, so we can ignore this error for now. Now, once we had our 2 choices, or our count is 1, so we add another card. Now we've got 2 cards that we've chosen. We're going to use a with animation, and I'm going to use animation.linear, so just like a linear animation, and I'm also going to add a delay of 1 second to that animation. For each card in, or this card in user choices, I'm going to flip them back around. So it's going to turn it back around the other way. So that's pretty much ready to go. There is one thing we should also do. We might do that a little bit later, is actually check it for a match. So see if it matches or not. So now I'm happy with this view. So my preview, note it will not work because what we're going to do, we're going to actually set these up. So I'm going to get rid of this assignment. So we've got an observed object as our card. We've got our width, and I'm going to set that in another view as well. We're going to have a binding for the matched cards, and I'm going to take out the card, the empty lists. I'm going to have a binding for the user choices as well, so I'm going to take that one out as well. So now when I build it, this should actually work. There shouldn't be any errors because we're using bindings, so now we can actually append values without any errors. But it does mean that when we're actually using it in our main view, in our memory, in our content view that is rather, that we're going to have to be careful with our choices. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually create a grid or a view. And so because I'm using I'm going to call it a lazy view. So it's only going to create as many items as we need based on how many items are in our list or how many cards we've created. So let's create a private variable for a 4-column grid. Column grid. And I'm going to use a grid item, and I'm going to make it flexible, and I don't need a minimum or a maximum, so it's just a grid item flexible. And then I'm going to copy that, and because I've got 4 columns, I'm going to have paste, paste, paste. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 items, and then that square bracket is the closure for the 4-column grid. I'm going to do the same thing again, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it down here. This is going to be a 6-column grid. I'm going to copy this and paste it in another 2 times, so then we have 6 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. From here, I'm going to create our list of cards using our create card list function and I'm also going to shuffle it, and that shuffle is actually quite unique. It is going to randomize the order of our cards. That way even us as developers, we won't know what card is going to be where. I'm also going to create our matched cards as a list of card. Whoops, blank. Copy and paste it, and this last one is going to be our user choices, and it's also going to be a blank list of cards to begin with. Now in our view, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a geometry reader, geo for short, and now I can actually read the size of the screen. So I can create a vertical stack. I can create some text in here that says ocean memory. And for this, so you can see it at the top there, I'm also going to put in my little wave emoji. Just give it a bit of a theme. And I can make it font, large title, so it's nice and prominent. And now I can use my lazy V grid. And this is where it's really cool. So we can add columns and content. So our columns, I'm going to make this a 4-column grid. And the content, actually, you know what? Let's take out the content. But I might want to add some spacing of 10 pixels. And then for each card in, I can create a card view. Oops. And I'm going to pass in the card. Now the width, I'm actually going to use, I'm going to put this on a new line, matched cards, and then user choices. So the width, I'm actually going to use the geo.size.width. Now this is 4 columns, so I'm going to divide by 4, and because I've got spacing of 10, I'm going to just take away 10 as well. And all of this needs to be an integer. So I'm going to kind of pass it into an integer, because at the moment, this geometry reader will not pass an integer in. So the next thing I'm going to need is my matched cards. I'm going to pass that in as a binding, matched cards, and our user choices. And this is where it's convenient that I've named my user choices here actually is from our card view, and this one here with the $sign is this one here. So you can see it's created our list of cards. Now this is all of our cards, and they've all been shuffled already, ready to go. So now if I press play, you can tap on them and you can turn them over, and you can see they're all in random order. So it's kind of almost working. So the last thing I'm going to do is create a vertical stack down the bottom, and that's going to have like which cards we need to match to win. And when we tap on the card, we're also going to have to check if it is a match, and then record that match. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to just quickly jump back into our card view, and we're going to add a function in this card view to check for a match. Check for match. And what it's going to do is if our user choices, position 0 dot text is equal to our user choices position 1 or the next one dot text, so there is a match, then we're going to go matched cards dot append, and we're going to add the user choices 0, and we're going to also add the user choices 1. So we're going to add both cards if they are a match. And then what we're going to do, regardless of if they're match or not, we're going to say user choices dot remove all. So we're going to clear that list. And so when do we check for a match? Well, that's basically, if you have a look, if our where are we? If user choices count is equal to 1 inside here. So we're going to basically turn them over, give it a second, check for the match, and then if they match, basically, then they're going to keep in their matched cards, and in which case they're going to stay face up. So that's ready to go. So let's go back to our content view. And again, we've got all of our cards ready to go. And we've got our motion memory, and we've got our matched cards. So basically, with our lazy V grid, I'm just going to collapse this lazy V grid and make this a little bit wider so it's all on the one screen. We're going to create a vertical stack. Yep. You know what? Let's create this outside. So in our vertical stack, let's go VStack. So going to be another one. Text is going to be called match these cards to win. To win. And we're going to create another lazy V grid. So I'm going to copy and paste this one in. Columns, then content. So our columns this time, I'm going to use the 6-column grid. I'm going to get rid of this content, but I'm going to add spacing. Sorry. So the spacing for this one is going to be 5, so it's going to be a bit narrower. And then for each card values, and each one is unique, so I can assign ID for self. Card value in, and we can create our text, card value, because it's a string. So that's now going to give me all of my card values down here. There you go. Now, I actually want them only to show up if they're not already matched. So if the if it's not the case that matched cards, dot contains, where the text is equal to the card value, then we're going to put this in. So if we've already matched it, then we don't want it to show up. And I also am, just while I'm here, going to change the font system size to 40, so they're a lot bigger. So now they're only going to show in this list if they're not actually matched. And when we have made a match, the match stays visible, and then the card value disappears from this match these to win. That's pretty much it. So what we might do now, we might press the play button and let's see what happens. So we're looking for a match. So there's a match here, and you can see it disappeared from this list, and these two stay up. And then we can continue to find matches. There's another match, and you can see that disappears from the list as well. And we continue to play until we make all of our matches. Now it's up to you if you wanted to then add like a timer, and then you can award points for how much time is left, and then you can add rounds as well, and you can add different cards. So at the moment this is an ocean theme, so you could then change it to a African theme, for example, where you've got African wild animals.